Hi there. My name is Jesse Dahl. I am one of the electrical maintenance instructors here at Hibbing Community College. Electrical maintenance is a 2-year program. We take 30 students a year and we're usually pretty full. So if it's a class that you're maybe interested in, it's one that you should get signed up for sooner rather than later. We have lots of possibilities with this trade of where you can go work. Most people, we think when they kind of come through our program, think of going to work in the mines or going to work for the IBEW or a construction contractor building stuff. But there's lots of different avenues. For instance, I came out of the renewable energy field. I installed solar and wind systems for the last probably 10 years before I got hired on here teaching. One of the people I teach with, Steve Oberstar, he has his own contracting company. And so he kind of takes that route. And then there's, fire alarm systems, there's residential wiring, there's working in one of the mines or power plants, there's automation, there's instrumentation. There's a lot of different avenues that this trade and this program can kind of steer you towards. But all of these trades kind of have in common one thing, which of course is electricity, but also is conduit. Conduit is another word for the tube that we run our wires in, and there's lots of different versions of it. Plumbers have piping for their water. They have copper, or they have plastic, or they have flexible plastic they call PEX. We kind of have the same stuff. We have metal and plastic raceways, we call them. Some are flexible, some are hard, and you have to bend them with either a hand bender or a machine. The most common one that we have is called EMT. And it comes in all different sizes. The most common is what we would call this 1/2 inch. So it's very thin, there's a thin outer wall to it. The 1/2 inch is talking about the diameter inside, and we can put our wires in there just like a plumber would put water in a garden hose or in one of their pipes. Another type that we have is plastic, which we call PVC. This is a piece of heavy duty Schedule 80, and you can see the difference on the thickness of that pipe, right? The outer wall thickness. So this one is very thin and this one is very thick. So they're not all interchangeable. They have their special places where we would use them or we wouldn't use them. But how do we bend it? If I need this to have a bend in it, I don't just bend it with my hand or bend it over my knee. I have what we call hand benders, or we use one of these machines. And this is a hydraulic or an electric bender. This is made by Greenlee. And this is on big jobs. If you have big conduit, this is a piece of 2-inch, what we would call EMT, this metal solid piece of pipe. They come in 10-foot pieces. And so one of the most common jobs for construction electricians, especially, or even like when I was working in renewable energy, was bending this conduit. And so there's a bunch of math we have to use to bend conduit. And I think that's one of the things that surprises people when they come into our program is the amount of math that we do. Now, we're not talking, hours and hours of math, but you have to be able to read a tape measure. You have to be able to add and subtract fractions. You need some basic algebra because we have a lot of formulas where we're substituting values in for formulas. So having that basic knowledge is great. And then when you get to bending conduit, it's even more important that you have some basic algebra and some basic knowledge with especially a tape measure. So I'm going to show you bending a piece of conduit, which is again one of the most common jobs we do besides putting lights in, running conduit, especially for building something like this school. There's probably miles of conduit inside this building, all put up by construction electricians. And then we pull our wires in and then we hook up our stuff. For instance, where this bender is plugged into, right there on the wall, you can see these receptacles on the wall. All of you have receptacles in your home. Inside this block wall, there is conduit, probably a piece of this 1/2 inch conduit stuck inside the wall. Then it goes up into the ceiling and then we bend it and go places, front to our lights, run to other junction boxes. All of those are put in by the electricians. So this is a fun bender to use. It's a kind of a smart bender. You can tell it what to do and just hit the button and it stops on its own. So I'm going to walk you through bending what we would call a 90-degree bend. Looks like just a hook. It's going to look like this. This is a 90-degree bend, right? So if I took an angle finder, this would be 90 degrees. But instead of it being just in a piece of 1/2 inch, I'm going to bend it in a piece of 2-inch conduit. So this is the end of our conduit where I want the 90 to be bent into it. If you remember that piece of 1/2 inch that I had, we're gonna end up bending this so that it comes up and you'll see a 90 degree bend on it. We don't just put them anywhere we want, you know, we have to kind of lay this thing out where we'd have to measure, you know, how high do I want what we call the stub? How high do I want this 90? And so I'm just gonna make one up for us today. And I'm just gonna say 24 inches. I'm gonna make a mark at 24 inches. And we have to do some other math if we really want to size this perfectly, but for demonstration purposes, this is going to be good enough. And so what I want that mark to line up with the end of my shoe, this little hook here. So I'm going to put that in place there. And you can see this bender does lots of different sizes: 2 inch, 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, 1 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1/2 inch. And this bender is built to do all sorts of different sizes. So whatever you have to bend, this thing can pretty much bend all of it. It's a really nice and fancy bender. Hey, you're on my piece of pipe now, and we just bent ourselves a 90 on a piece of 2-inch conduit. Thank you for coming. If you got any questions, please get a hold of us over at the Electrical Maintenance Department. You can find all of our contact information right on the website. Yeah, look forward to seeing you hopefully someday in electrical maintenance.